Hey, what's up, Freedom fans, and welcome back inside Dennis Pelfrey's office. It's time for edition 2 of the Dennis Pelfrey Show. Dennis, thank you very much for the access again, as always.
Not a problem, not a problem. Enjoy having you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Happy Memorial Day to you as well. It's a holiday for most people, off work today, but this guy's never got a day off. What is the routine today on Memorial Day with the guys?
We had a simulated game set up. Had a couple arms coming in to work out. Some hitters get to see some live. Obviously, Drew Martinez and Mike Morris are here working with some guys hitting. Got some guys in the weight room, and we're getting ready for the road trip tomorrow. Absolutely.
On Memorial Day, it's pretty common to think about the sacrifices people make for this great country. Play for the Florence Freedom. Certainly Memorial Day, a big holiday here around this organization. But you don't have to be a soldier to make sacrifices. Dennis, a guy that spent his life coaching, being around the game of baseball, there are plenty of sacrifices that are made in your line of work as well. What are some of those sacrifices that you've made at home that you've been allowed kind of the privilege and opportunity to coach and not have to worry about what's going on?
My wife, she but she's supportive in what I'm doing. I'm 1,000 miles away from her right now and our son, and that's a big sacrifice, being away from the family. But I think, from day one, the players understand that, and that's kind of what we preach here, is there has to be some sacrifice to do the things that you want to do. Obviously, Memorial Day is a big day to kind of remember those things. It's definitely more about other things than drinking beer and grilling out hot dogs, and I know that a lot of people do those things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the point of the day is for something much bigger than us and much bigger than where we're at right now, and hopefully everybody realizes that.
Well, the coaching profession is one that always has fascinated me. There are so many sacrifices that are made, and it's pretty obvious. You love it, you live it. Coaches that want to be around the game for their entire life, the amount of hours they put in, they pour into it, it's really something to see. When did you know that you wanted to be a coach? When was it in your career that you knew this is the life I want?
I think it took a little time after I was done playing. I was a little bitter at the game after I was done playing because, I don't think I went out on my own terms, so to speak. I had an injury and, got offered to play one more year, and I turned it down just because I was a little upset with where I was at. Maybe I didn't get my shot in affiliated baseball, or I didn't make it to the big leagues. And it was just kind of one of those points in my life where I wanted to get away from it for a little bit and, went into the corporate world, so to speak, in the construction industry, and got to learn a lot of things, and I enjoyed it. It was fun, and but at the end of the day, when I got the opportunity to coach baseball again, it was a no-brainer. So it was about 2 years after I was done playing, I started back up again, and haven't looked back since.
Not at all. Well, one guy that we know that's been instrumental in your career as a coach was one of your former managers when you were with the Du Bois County Dragons. Had 3 of your best seasons as a baseball player playing for Greg Taggart. Talk to me about what he's meant to you in your coaching career and kind of the mentor he's been for you.
He's amazing. He's probably the best in the business as far as independent ball goes. His coaching tree is phenomenal. He's got guys in the big leagues, guys in the minor leagues, guys managing independent clubs, all around. But for me personally, he actually released me the first year he was with Du Bois County, the last day of spring training, and then ended up re-signing me maybe a week later. He obviously knew he needed me, but one of those things. But no, it was no hard feelings at the time. I didn't understand the classifications and all those things that go into the backside of baseball that people don't really understand. But no, it was a great time playing for him. I had to play my way into a starting role, and I think once I got that starting role, I never looked back. And he wanted me on his club, and then he asked me to coach a couple times after I was done playing as well, and I turned him down. And finally, 2011. I decided to coach with him and got to see the other side of it through him. So not only as a player, understanding what it took as far as preparation and those things to play, I learned from him. As a coach, it was a lot more instrumental in where I'm at now as far as everything that goes into getting ready for just a game.
Absolutely. So how much rubbed off as far as his identity, the way he approached the game of baseball? We know Dennis Pelfrey's brand of baseball is 1, find some of the very best players around. 2, pitch it well, play good defense. 3, offensively, they're going to work their way on base. OBP is a big thing for you, and obviously the stolen bases. Any of that kind of a direct translation from your mentor and coaching?
Yes and no. I think that my brand or our brand is a little different. It's a more fast-paced type of baseball, where his thing, and a lot of people say this, and I hope a lot of people listen to this, or will understand a little bit more. But a lot of people say when you go play for the Gary South Shore Railcats, it's college ball or small ball, and that's not what it is. And a lot of people have misconceptions of what he does. I mean, he's going to bunt when he needs to bunt, and he's going to steal a base when he needs to steal a base. He's going to hit and run when he needs to hit and run, and they're going to play good defense, and they're going to pitch. And that's kind of what I stem from a little bit. I just like to do it a little faster. But again, it's not small ball. It's baseball, and it's the way it should be played. Up in Gary, and just like here, we want to change the culture of how the game's going now, to all the home runs and the big strikeouts, to guys that throw strikes, get double play balls, and hit doubles, those things.
Absolutely. So now transitioning from the opportunity to be the assistant coach under Greg Taggart, came back, decided you want to be around the game, you get the opportunity to be the head dog here in Florence with the Freedom. What was that like? You were replacing a legend in Fran Riordan, a guy that had the most wins at the time in the league. Obviously, the Florence Freedom always are a team that wants to win. You come here, that's the expectation. What was that like when you got the call, and how did that feel, kind of knowing that, okay, now this is my club, now I'm the one that's under the watch here? It
was really, a lot of excitement. Fran, who was here before me, I actually played with him in Du Bois County. I don't know if you knew that. Played with him in Du Bois County, and then he took over as player manager my first year in Du Bois County, and we finished the year, and we were okay. We were one of the worst teams in the league, but not of any of his fault, because he took over a team that wasn't built right. And then the next year he moved on and was the player manager in Richmond, which is no longer in the league, but that's when Taggart took over in Du Bois County. So I actually played with Fran, and then he became my player manager playing with him, and then he was a player manager against me as well. So I knew him pretty well, and we were pretty close as well. So obviously he had a hand in putting my name in in people's minds here in Florence, Clint Brown especially. But when Clint called me and said the job opened up and Fran was going to take a job in affiliated baseball, I was actually in the process of interviewing for the Sioux Falls Canaries job in the American Association. It was actually down to me and one other guy, but they weren't going to make a decision until mid-January or something like that. And after I interviewed with Clint, he offered me the job on the spot, which was amazing, unexpected, but amazing. And basically I told him I just needed 24 hours. He told me to take 5 days, but I called my wife on the plane back home, and she was good with it. So by the time I got back to Dallas, the answer was yes, and that's where we moved from there. Man, I've never told anybody this, but I want to now. We'll do it on camera. Before I got the chance to come to Florence, I was actually also a finalist for a Sioux Falls Canary job. Wow. Ended up coming to Florence. So we're not so different, you and I, Dennis. And I'm happy to be here in Florence with you. Team's really starting to play well. You're 8-6 now on the season. You guys looked like maybe a top team in the league, really, since the season has started. The way you can hit the ball, the way you put pressure on teams offensively, starting to really play better defensively as well. The starting pitching is phenomenal. What's kind of your assessment so far through the first 2 weeks? 8-6 record, just a half game out in the West Division, but I know you look at it a lot differently than that. Yeah, I think, in all reality, if we go back and look game by game, we've really lost 2 games, that one to River City and then the second one here to Southern Illinois, that we've really gotten beat. The other games we've kind of beat ourselves. We talked last time about some of those things that'll play here and there, and I still feel the same way. I mean, we've actually cleaned up some of those things that we talked about from last time, and we are playing a little bit better. I know we went to Washington, and offensively we exploded. In those 3 games. One of the games that we lost, we made one bad pitch and didn't come up with a big 2-out hit. So other than that, we played a pretty clean series there. Excuse me, pretty clean series there, and then Southern Illinois just. It was their day. We had their starting pitcher game 2 on the ropes every inning. Had bases loaded, nobody out, didn't score. So, hats off to their starter that day that, he shut some things down that we got on early, and, they ended up prevailing over us over at the end. We talked about the first 3 series of the season on episode 1 of the Dennis Pelfrey Show. Only a couple of series have been played since, and one of them got cut short, rained out yesterday in the finale with the Southern Illinois Miners. But coming off that series loss to Evansville, the team was hungry to get back on the field. You guys do go to Washington and blew their doors off in game 1. 17-3, largest margin of victory in the Frontier League this season. Had to feel good for this offense that we know has been kind of like right there on the precipice to break through in such a big way. Had to build all their confidence. Yeah, I think, we did talk about our offense staying with the approach and not getting frustrated or negative, when things aren't going quite their way. And it really showed the character of our offensive club, in that series where we kept doing our thing. We drew, I think, 13 walks that first night. And there were some borderline pitches that, you can say went our way, but they were balls, and what I loved about that series too is the home plate umpire in that first game did not change his zone based upon the score, which is something you don't really see a lot these days.
Yeah.
The score was out of hand, but the strike zone stayed the same. So it was even for our guys, we had to throw strikes, quality strikes, to win the game and keep them down as well. So it was a very big breath of fresh air, so to speak, for our offense to come out and do that, because we didn't. Did we even hit a home run that game? I don't know if we did.
I don't think not in the game one.
I don't think we did, and we're
or Andre Mercurio home run in the first inning.
In the first inning. So it was a big 2-out walk by Ricky Ramirez, I remember now, and then and Mercurio hits the homer to start the scoring, but it was like 2 runs, 1 run, 3 runs, 3 runs, 1 run. So we were putting up a lot of runs without the long ball, which is what I've been preaching to these guys that we don't need to do. We can steal some bases, draw some walks, hit some doubles, sack flies. I think we're leading the league in sack flies by double anybody else. So some of those things, we're taking advantage of runners at third base with less than 2 outs, and that's big.
One thing we talked about also in episode 1 was that Freedom WAR calculation that Dennis came up with in the offseason, really focused on base percentage. You've got to love the way that's kind of translated through the first couple weeks of the season. The calculation you put together, there had to be some element of, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm sure you probably had a pretty good feeling it would, but now that you got everybody in here and you're seeing it, even some guys that are hitting under 200, guys like Taylor Bryant, Ricky Ramirez, slower starts, their on-base percentage is still 400. They're still on base. You're still setting up big innings at the plate. Has to feel good early in the season to see I was onto something with that calculation.
Yeah, I think, going into it, we always think we know what we're talking about, right? So,
no risk at all.
But, I'm not going to take all the credit for that. I mean, Brian White, our pitching coach, was instrumental in that calculation thing we came up with as well. And so far it's been perfect to the T. I mean, it's... if you look at the league leaders, or the team lead stuff in the offensively, the Florence Freedom are sitting at the top, and it's not a mistake.
Not a mistake at all. The pitching, something also we talked about earlier in the Dennis Pelfrey Show, the starting pitching has been phenomenal. Looks like right now maybe we're starting to find some guys where they fit in the back end of the bullpen. Kind of walk us through kind of the evaluation process right now and kind of where you're seeing certain guys in the later innings.
Yeah, I mean, the starters have been doing their job and doing a good job of it for sure. The bullpen, the biggest thing with the bullpen is we're young, so we're going to go through some bumps, and we're going to have some headaches, and we're going to have some days where it's just doesn't feel right. But the long-term plan is to make sure these guys are ready to go game 80 when it's that playoff push, because our league's so good, and our division especially is so good. I mean, if you look at the records, we're all 7-7 or 10-7, I think, or 10-6, I think is the leader. So we've been beating on each other the whole season so far in division. So game 80 is kind of where we want to be at our best. Maybe even game 60. If we can be at our best and finish the year from 80 on out in that bullpen, then we're going to be unbeatable, and that's the truth. So some of these younger guys have got to learn and got to, speed up a crash course, so to speak, on kind of what we're trying to accomplish. We have several guys that are converted guys that have never really pitched a full season either. So it's a tough task for Brian White, but he's willing to embrace it and get after it a little bit with those guys. So right now, I mean, obviously the guy we have in there that's been lights out every single time for the last 2 years is Jonathan Tripp. So he's not. I wouldn't label him as our closer. I would label him as our stopper, because he can come in the 6th inning and strike out the side with bases loaded, nobody out, or he can come in the 9th inning in a 1-run game and win it, or he can come in the 9th inning and pitch 2 innings for us and get a win. So he's done that. So and he understands the role, and it's not about the numbers to him. It's about being put in those high pressure situations to really not prove to anybody other than the affiliated clubs that have passed on him for the last 2 years that he can be that guy. And he's arguably the best bullpen arm in our league because he can do a lot of different things.
Yeah, he was an all-star in 2018. I think there's no question the Freedom had the best closer in the league in Jonathan Tripper, the best stopper in the league in Tripp, a guy that at Texas Tech was a midweek starter for them, and I think the Red Raiders usually have a pretty good baseball team this time of year. So exciting to see what Jonathan's been able to do. He was big in that series with the Miners, so we'll put the Wild Thing series on the back burner now. It was a 2 of 3 success for the Freedom. Then you come back home to play the Southern Illinois Miners. They like to kind of label themselves as the villain of the Frontier League, I think. They certainly play the part extremely well. What exactly about that series gets the juices flowing between these two teams? Because it's quite clear the Freedom and Miners, they don't mix.
Well, Mike Pinto does a great job over there as far as organization and bringing in players that are going to, play his style of baseball. They're going to be very disciplined. They're going to play good defense. They're going to pitch, and they're going to hit a little bit. They've got a team over there that's going to hit some home runs with some guys that are kind of powerful, so to speak, at the plate. So as long as we can contain some of those guys and keep their little speedsters off the bases, I think we'll be able to match up well with them. But at the end of the day, it's an in-division game, and they're turning into a big rivalry for us. And the first couple of years, my first couple of seasons here, they kind of put it on me a little bit, and over the last couple of years, we've kind of answered right back with some big blows ourselves. So. It was unfortunate we got rained out yesterday because I felt like we would win that series and kind of take some momentum going into Gateway. But, Mother Nature had other plans for us yesterday. So, we're excited to get out there and get after Gateway this coming up week.
No, absolutely. So that series with the Miners went your way in Game 1. Got a walk-off win, a thrilling 8-7 victory in 10 innings. Jonathan Tripp, who you mentioned, was spectacular that night. Also got to see a couple arms they had in the bullpen. Is there any chance that maybe Southern Illinois is better than you thought maybe they were coming into the season? I couldn't get over some of the guys they were bringing in late in games. The guy they threw Game 2 was throwing 98 with 89 disappearing slider. Was there any of that kind of caught us by surprise as far as how good they were late in games?
No, I think typically the Southern Illinois club always has a couple hard throwers in their bullpen. The first night Jordan Brink, we knew about him. He came last year from the Pacific Association, knew he was a hard thrower, a little erratic at times, but we kind of knew what we were getting when we were facing him. And then the Duran kid that was sitting 98 or through 98, Game 2, we saw him in the Frontier League tryout. He was in the Red Sox organization as a starter, so they probably had him in the wrong spot. He's never really been a walk guy, and that guy doesn't need to be here very long. I mean, he's very good, and those are the kind of guys we try to find too. So,
exactly.
I mean, obviously we can't have every arm in our bullpen, so there's going to be some spread out over the league, and Mike Pinto does a good job of finding those guys. So, I think it was like a 4th round pick in our draft this season too. We passed on him a couple of times, and maybe Nick Duran has a little chip on his shoulder, and because we passed on him, and all the other teams in the league passed on him in the draft, so he's gonna have that chip on his shoulder against everybody he plays, and he threw really well. He threw really well against us, and I actually talked to a couple of affiliated scouts about him, and I think he needs to get at least a look. So
yeah.
Hopefully it happens for him, and that's kind of what it's about, is making sure guys get those opportunities. And if Nick does get picked up by an affiliated club, I'm sure Mike Pinto will have another guy out there that's going to be 96, 98 for him again.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. There is so much talent in the Frontier League. It's great to see. You never know who's going to come in the game and what kind of stuff they're going to have. The Freedom split that series with the Miners. Again, the rain out on Sunday did not afford them the privilege of getting a chance to take that series. We all had good feelings that was going to be the case. But now we'll go ahead and just jump to the next series. You mentioned going to Gateway, a little 3-game set, and Sauget, Illinois, waiting on the Freedom. They're a team that has struggled mightily the last couple of seasons, but early here in 2019, they look like they might have a pretty good group. They're in contention. You talked about the West Division being a logjam right now. They're right in the thick of it.
Yeah, they, Phil Warren over there, he's been there for a while. He knows what wins in this league, and he's kind of revamped that whole team from the last couple of years. They were kind of the same guys, and just couldn't get out of that rut, so to speak. Not that they didn't have good players, because they did. We tried to get a couple of those guys late in the season to help a playoff push for us, but it's not that he didn't have the right guys, but it just didn't work for him those last couple of years. But yes, right off the bat, they're in the mix, and they've been winning some games and doing what they need to do. So, like I said, this division in the Frontier League is going to be one of the best in independent baseball, if not the best, as far as how guys are beating up on each other. And I love it. I love the competition. I love going into it not, with our guys not thinking that they're just going to roll over for us. They know we got to be at our best to beat them. And if we are at our best, we will beat them. But, if we're not, then they're going to beat us. So that's kind of how it's going to be with everybody.
In 2018, the postseason push was really something to watch. It was 6 teams all within a game and a half, a couple of spots on the line, and it looks like early in 2019 we're going to have a similar finish to the season as that is, like you said, the West Division right now, entirely teams contending for playoff spots. It should be tremendous fun to watch, and Dennis, best of luck in that series. We'll be there.
I appreciate that, and I don't think that you're going to see much difference in our division when it's the All-Star break. It's going to be real similar. So, and that's the beauty of it, and that's what I love about this game is every night somebody's got a chance to do really well and be the champ of the night, so to speak, and so it's going to be exciting, and it's going to make it even better for us when we do make the playoffs and we do put ourselves in the chance to win this whole thing. It's going to really just put a cap on it for what we've accomplished this season. So.
Absolutely. The Freedom 8-6. They are back in action on Tuesday in Sauget, Illinois, taking on the Gateway Grizzlies. We'll be there. This is the Dennis Pelfrey Show. It goes every Monday. So tune in on social media, on YouTube. Dennis Pelfrey Show Mondays from here on out. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you.